Welcome to Claiming Space, a podcast about what it really means to step forward, speak up, and lead with intention. This first season is all about women in leadership, the real stories behind the roles, the challenges, the ambition, and the moments that shape how we lead the serve, sharing honest conversations about leadership as it actually shows up at work. This isn't about perfect answers. It's about insight, reflection, and the courage to own your voice. So whether you're leading others, stepping into something new, or thinking about the space you want to take up, you're in the right place. Today, I'm really excited to be joined by Brook Gallagher. Brooke is a leadership consultant and founder of Brook Gallagher Consulting, where she works with organizations and senior leaders to navigate transformation. Her work sits right at the intersection of leadership, culture, and change, helping people not just to respond to complexity, but to actually lead through it. So welcome, Brooke. It's lovely to have you join us today.
It's great to be here. Thanks, Fatima.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. It's a beautiful day, a little stroll in the sun
Oh, how
on
lovely.
my way here. Yeah,
How
very
lovely.
nice.
And have you had to come from far?
I've come from Canterbury today, so
Nice.
just take the fast train, little walk in the sun. Yeah, it's
How
beautiful.
lovely. So I think we should just get straight in. It would be lovely to hear a little bit about yourself and what you do.
I currently run my own consultancy, Brook Gallagher Consulting, which has two key through lines in the type of work that I'm doing. One is about AI literacy and training, and the other is I'm a certified Working Genius facilitator. So the Working Genius is a productivity framework, and it's really great for team dynamics and team productivity. And it's rather than a personality test, so it's not about being a scary lion or being a thoughtful elephant. It's much more about where you get your energy from and where you get your joy from. So two quite interesting strings to my bow that are my two through lines, but they sort of interweave really nicely, actually, because the Working Genius is all about where you get your energy from, and you can use AI tools to help you enhance where you get your energy and where you're really strong, and you can use AI tools to help in areas that are more frustrating for you energetically, or your weak spots, if you will. But prior to this, I've worked in arts and culture and software as a service for the last 10 to 20 years. And I've always been on that technology side of working in cultural organizations. Even when I was at the National Theatre, I was a systems manager there, and I was doing lots of training and pulling all the people together to get them to use the most of some of the complex software that they were using.
What first drew you into your industry? And what's the through line you can see now looking back?
Yeah, so for about 20 years now, I've worked in the cultural sector or in technology companies that serve the cultural sector. And recently, as you've mentioned, have started my own consultancy. And the thing that I've always, it took me a little bit of reflection to realize, but the thing that I've always been doing for the past 20 years, whether I worked at the National Theatre as a systems manager in sales and events and community, but the through line through everything has been about translating technology and helping people make the most of technology that they already have access to, for people who just want to do their jobs. They just want to, they're working in a theatre or they're working in a concert hall. They're selling tickets, they're fundraising, and they kind of want to get on with their job. And they're not necessarily excited about the idea of technology, but it's a necessary part of what's available to them to help them achieve their goals. And that's what I've really been doing for 20 years when I look back on it. And it's something I'm really good at. And it's sort of, it's even now, it's quite difficult to sort of admit, like, oh, that is something I'm really good at. And that's, I think, ties to some of the themes that we'll be talking about today as well.
I guess let's explore a little bit more about this crossover between tech and culture. It's completely different areas. How are they merging? How are you bringing that both together?
So when I graduated with theatre studies, moved to the UK. So I'm originally from Australia. You probably can't tell. My accent's quite confusing. But I've been here a long time and have worked in cultural and arts organizations and theatres and theatre and education companies. But in 2013, I started working at the National Theatre as the CRM systems manager, and that means looking after a big, complicated piece of tech. It means being the face of that piece of tech. It means helping people who they just want to get their jobs done. They're not as excited about tech as I am, and that's okay because I'm there to help them make the most of the tools. So training different departments within the National Theatre that we're using a big CRM system essentially. So the fundraising team, the education team, the box office, marketing, working across all the teams to help the organization get the most out of the system they were using. Then I went to work for that company. So I made the switch from being a client to being the provider side on the supplier side. And I've worked in a couple of tech companies who work exclusively with arts and cultural organizations until fairly recently. And I've spent the last year, 18 months, really spending a lot of my time in my day job, but also out of my day job, focused on AI and upskilling myself and building things and learning and frankly working 7 days a week and doing some projects, some more smaller consultancy projects, which is what I've turned my attention to full time recently. If you're in an arts organization, you have all the different departments. Some are working behind the scenes, some are public facing.
Yeah.
But in many organizations, they are relying on a handful of central systems that they're using, and helping people get the most out of those systems has been a real focus for me. Particularly, my last job and kind of leading into what I do now, which is really focusing on the AI piece. And there's quite a gap, I think, in access to resources and access to some of the higher end tools and access to learning. And because it's a creative industry, understandably, there are a lot of ethical concerns or concerns about copyright infringement and like what's going to happen to our creativity if the robots are taking over. But I also think that means there's a real literacy gap. And my goal is to help close that gap for organizations, no matter what tools they have access to, no matter what their budget for AI or innovation is, to help people make the most of this new technology and kind of not be slower to adopt things. And I want to help bridge that gap.
Well, that's the thing. AI is the new buzzword. It's the new buzzword that's flown.
I know, and here's me, yet another person who's become an AI consultant and is posting on LinkedIn. So,
but I think it's really interesting because there's so much out there about AI, but less so about how can it be used and implemented in day-to-day roles. So I guess, like you said, bridging that gap.
Yeah, very much about
important
everyday use. I'm not coming in and writing a bunch of agents for you so you can fire half your team. That's not what I'm about. I'm about humanity, practicality, like what's actually achievable. There's so much hype.
Yeah.
And that is quite exciting. And that's for me to stay on top of and for me to spend my time focused on. But a lot of people don't have time to do that or don't have an interest. And I completely understand that. So I will do that work for you. So that I can kind of help bring those things to life. So like, for example, I've been doing some work with the Dutch National Opera and Ballet in Amsterdam. And I did a half-day training with them recently, marketing and fundraising team. And an over 20% increase in confidence levels from before the training to after the training, and a real appetite from some people, not all people, but for some people who really want to get out there and experiment. And it's also about growing those advocates and growing those super users. But I think it's also about acknowledging not everyone wants to be an AI super user. A lot of people just, it doesn't motivate them. So then how do we serve the people who just want to get on with their jobs and they'll use tools that are provided to them and optimize? Great. How do we serve those people? How do we serve the people who are a little bit interested but not going to spend a lot of time doing it? And then how do we serve the advocates who are getting really excited about what's possible and want to kind of push the boundaries? So that was a really rewarding experience. And then I've also been working with a small commercial theatre company in London who don't have a huge budget, and they have access to an AI tool that's called Copilot, but it's kind of a very basic version. They don't have the infrastructure to pay for the upgrades that Microsoft charges. So, we work with what we've got there, and we've built a few, Microsoft call them agents, but they're not agentic in that sort of what the hype is about. They're just basically subject matter experts with structured behaviors. So we've built, kind of tailoring the training for exactly what the organization needs. And I really love kind of just getting out there and building things for people and working with people. And helping them just see what's possible.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not all sort of terrible generic nonsense.
That's the thing, because there's a lot out there about people losing their jobs and AI replacing individuals, replacing certain sectors. So I guess this is nice to sort of start introducing people to what's out there and what's possible.
Yeah. And I think, given the subject of this podcast, there are a lot of women that are in some of those jobs that people are predicting are likely to be reduced or replaced by AI, those kind of administrative assistant, executive assistant type roles. Largely women are in those roles. Those, paralegal roles and receptionist roles and things like that. So I think it is really worrying for a lot of people. People are reading the headlines and becoming quite nervous. And so what I want to do is help people understand what's possible and help with the literacy piece, so that if you choose not to use AI tools, I completely support you, absolutely. But let me help you understand what's possible, how it could streamline your work, and how you can focus the time that you save on quality human interactions or building relationships. Imagine if you had a tool that could help you do that, and then you can focus on relationships with your clients. Or the strategy piece, or whatever you find enjoyable. We want to get AI to do all the stuff that takes your joy away, that's drudgery, that is repetitive, that isn't cognitively rewarding. Also, because there is also quite, I would say, a valid fear of people just offloading all of their cognitive processes to an AI, which is something I would very much warn against.
I guess even handing it over to somebody else can be quite daunting, let alone AI. So
absolutely. And you do have to treat AI like it's an intern on its first day that doesn't know anything about you. I use the Working Genius framework, which is, just really quickly, there are 6 types of working genius, and you have 2 geniuses and 2 frustrations. It's a Patel-Lencioni model. The Table Group is quite a well-known management consultant. But it's basically aligns with 6 stages of working. So the wonderer at the beginning is, up in the clouds. Why are we here? What does this mean? Why do we do things the way that we're doing things? Asking those big picture questions. Down through the 6 stages to the person that lands the plane, the person that dots the I's, crosses the T's, writes the report and passes it off. And you've got inventors and discerners and galvanizers and enablers in between. And for me, one of the great things about AI, I'm an inventor and an enabler. So I come up with loads of ideas and I want to do them all immediately now at the same time. So I've got Claude and GPT set up to challenge me on that and to get me to take a step back. Remind me, what are my goals? What's the strategy here? But I think things we have to be careful of. But if we can get more people to understand, how can we get the AIs to bring the best of you? That's quite exciting to me.
Talking about the framework, what do you find that it unlocks for the teams that you're working with?
The Working Genius framework. What I love about it is it's not personal. So it's not about your personality. It's about where you get your energy at any given point in a project. So if you think about, I'm sure we've all been in a position where we're about to deliver a piece of work, and then someone, potentially a senior leader, stops you and says, but what about A, B, and C, and kind of makes you go back to the beginning. And you can interpret that as being frustrating, annoying. You can interpret that as being personal or tension. But actually, in the Working Genius model, if you're a person who loves delivering something, and then you have a person who loves discerning things and re-looking at things and looking at all different sides and always kind of bringing it back to, but are we doing the right thing? Is this the best way to do this? You've got someone who's sort of got their head up in the clouds a little bit in the plane, and then you've got someone trying to land the plane, and it's not personal, it's just turbulence. So it can take that sting out of the person who's got discernment, which is a critical piece of any project, is looking at all of the options and choosing the best option. That person naturally is always going to try and discern, even when your tenacity person, so the tenacity person is tying everything up with a bow. When your tenacity person is trying to finish the project, and that's where they're getting their energy, and the discernment person, or even worse, the wonderer person, the person right at the beginning, the person very much with their head in the clouds asking all the questions, if they're trying to pull you back up, that can be very frustrating. So it's really great for being able to name that, having a vocabulary for it, being able to say, we're actually delivering this tomorrow, so that discernment that you've given is really valuable, but we'll put that into practice next time.
I guess we will come to a little bit more about AI, but I want to go back to explore with you the defining moments earlier in your career that have really shaped how you think about leadership today?
Yeah, there was this really clear moment for me. I've had the privilege of working with just incredible, wonderful people the majority of my career. And I had a particular MD who is one of the most inspiring people that I know that I've had the pleasure of working with. I just got off quite a tough call with a client, and I've just mentioned to her as she was passing that I wished that I was a bit more like a colleague of mine who didn't feel things so keenly, who didn't take things so personally, because the call had kind of upset me a little bit. And she's a managing director. She's, walking through the office, getting business done. And she just sat down next to me and she just said, "You have a sense of empathy and emotion that your colleague will never have. We're all different, but actually your weaknesses tend to just be your strengths overplayed. And so you will feel things more than your colleague. Your colleague is brilliant in many other ways, but you will feel things more. And that's a good thing. That is actually a strength for you. It means you understand people, you can empathize, you can really see where they're coming from, and you can show genuine connection. But it means that you're going to have to make space. You're going to have to allow space and time for when those upsetting moments happen, or if someone says something that is hurtful or that you take, that I would take as hurtful or take it personally." And that's just stuck with me for years and years and years. It's something that I come back to. And try and make space for those moments where I'm going to feel something. I'm going to feel it strongly, but that's who I am. For someone to say to me, "There's nothing wrong with you for having big feelings," that was just so freeing. It was just so emancipating.
And what's something that you used to judge yourself for that you've come to see differently? We don't have to answer this if you don't want to.
No. I mean, it's really that. It's a continuation of that judging yourself really harshly. And it, generally, when you've talked about this on previous episodes of the podcast, but women in roles being perceived differently, either too emotional or not emotional enough, which makes them bossy or worse. And it's trying to find the balance of feeling my big feelings, because I do have big feelings. So
let's move on a little bit to think about leadership now, and whether for you has that definition changed over time. Where are you now?
Where am I? I think what I've learned quite keenly is that there is a traditional path of what people call leadership, which is you do a job, you get promoted, you line manage people, you do less of the day-to-day stuff, you do more of the strategy in inverted commas. Sometimes that requires sitting in lots of meetings and, talking about big picture things a lot of your time. And you become very adept at managing upwards and managing downwards and managing sideways and influencing people. And I actually think that not everyone gets a lot of energy or joy from being a line manager. You might be a great coach. You might coach in all directions, up, down, sideways. You might not want to be a line manager. You might not be very good or get much energy from internal politics, internal influencing. And I think in the past few years, there's, I've had conversations with peers of mine, so middle, senior management, heads of department, directors in that kind of role, where just a lot of people close to me are having the realization that they don't get energy from that. That's not what they want to spend their time doing. And that's okay. I just very recently had this kind of epiphany, which is that the more senior you get in an organization, the less you tend to do. And going back to my working genius, I have enablement. That's very much a part of the working genius model. So I get lots of energy from doing. And one of the reasons that I've started my own consultancy is because I want to be collaborating and doing. And I've loved all the roles I've been in. The companies I've worked for have been fantastic. But just the more senior you become, the less you're like getting your hands dirty. And I kind of want to be out there running training sessions with people, helping people with their team dynamics and productivity. I want to be working with organizations to design and deliver. It's my inventor and my enabler, It means that my tenacity, which is like the dot the I's, cross the T's one, that's a frustration for me. So I'm not very good at staying on top of my expenses just yet. However, and I think realizing that and finding a way for that to be where I spend my time and energy. And many friends and colleagues have found similarly, if you don't get energy and joy from doing that thing, how can I change what I'm doing to make me really satisfied? Yeah.
And are there any things that you've had to unlearn to lead in a way that actually works for you?
Yeah, I think.
Or anything you've had to unlearn along the way?
Yeah. I've had the privilege of working for companies with great leadership approaches and unlearning that that micromanaging or
But I guess there are some negative behaviours in management or in leadership. And I guess to recognise that before unlearning.
Unlearning traditional stereotypes of management and how you line manage someone. I've just had great examples of people who were my line managers in organizations who showed me trust and autonomy. If I ever asked them, they would rarely tell me the answer to something because they would help me find the answer in myself.
Yeah.
But would support me when I needed it. Just the perfect balance, really. And I think unlearning those traditional ideas of what management are and trusting and sometimes letting people, depending on what the stakes are, but letting people fail in order to learn. I think that is something that's been really valuable. And for me, that makes a really good leader and a really good manager.
I guess that's probably also helpful in supporting the new generation of people coming into the workforce as well.
Yeah.
Who have completely different ways of working.
Yeah. And obviously some people need more support than others.
Yeah.
And a good leader, a good manager can recognize that. But the more that you can be building trust and autonomy in your teams, the more satisfied they're going to be, the more quickly they're going to learn and develop and grow as well.
Well-being, it's so important.
And more productive.
Yeah.
Which is, so it does link to the bottom line.
So I've got a question here that starts exploring the idea of where do you think women still underestimate themselves the most?
So there is data on the fact that women are less likely than men to apply for jobs if they don't fulfill all of the criteria, which I think speaks volumes. There's obviously, I'm not sharing anything new if I say things like gender pay gap and all that kind of stuff. I think mistaking emotional intelligence for emotional weakness, but I think that's both external and internal. Just feel like apologizing for caring too much. Some of those traits that we talked about, that kind of through line that I learned from my managing director, that your strengths are just your weaknesses overplayed. So how do you make the most of those?
Let's go on to the question that asks us, what do you think most leaders are still getting wrong about AI?
So I think a lot of leaders believe, and there is some studies to support this, but the leaders believe that the appetite and the interest in using AI tools within their workforces is actually higher than it is, that people in their teams will prioritize learning these new tools and experimenting with them. There's actually likely more resistance and ethical and job safety concerns than might be visible. You'll probably have some invisible resistance. And I think open, active dialogue to bring those to the surface is really important. And there's a couple of papers that are out there, one from the Harvard Business Review and a few other publications, that executives and senior leaders have a much more positive view of AI than their teams, and especially it's kind of as you become less senior, you report lower return on investment from using AI tools. Leaders believe that everyone is very enthusiastic, but individual contributors, the figures are just much lower. So I think that's something for people to be aware of. And because it is those less senior people as well, in maybe more entry-level jobs or more middle management jobs, who might be worried about the future of employment. If we all welcome in the AIs, what's going to happen to my job in a couple of years? So I think there's a real gap there. And then I also think throwing tools at a problem rather than understanding what the problem is. So maybe just buying some licenses to Microsoft Copilot or ChatGPT or whatever the tool it is, without really helping people have that fundamental training on literacy and how to use them, how to optimize them, how to get the most out of them on that everyday level. and expecting that people will spend their own time exploring those. Some people like me do that, but that's not for everyone. Some people just don't know where to start. So I do think leaders need a very sort of holistic, rather than just top down, everyone needs to use AI.
You mentioned that the senior leaders are more comfortable using AI and incorporating that in comparison to some of the other people in the organization because of job security or fears about that. Is there anything else fueling senior leadership desire to use and incorporate AI?
Yeah, it seems like from the data, the senior leaders feel very enthusiastic, feel very positive, are reporting higher returns on productivity than the people who are doing the actual work. So there is a bit of a mismatch there, which is really interesting. And I can definitely admit that have felt that rush of dopamine of using an AI tool and producing something really fantastic and getting very excited about it. But was it really a better return on investment for me and my time, or did I just have fun exploring and experimenting? Like, where is the little dopamine hit coming from? Is it from the achievement, or is it from the excitement of what these tools are capable of? All you can do is react to what's in front of you, and then in the back of your head, there's the robots are coming to kind of take the job away. And I completely understand that.
Yeah. In your experience and what you're seeing, is there fear of losing the human touch?
Absolutely. That's why I sound like a ready-made commercial there. That's one of my values. My values is realistic, practical, and human. They're kind of what I've built my business around. And the human part is so, so important. I think that people who are able to collaborate with the AI tools to enhance their humanity are more likely to be successful than people who are just getting a generic response and not fact checking it and not holding on to their personality, their humanity. I actually think that the human elements of what we do, as AI does do more and more, I think that the human presence, the human quality to things will become almost a high commodity value. Like, if you let AIs do all your work for you and there's no heart and soul in it, I don't think you'll have the same impact.
And what are some of the things do you think are important for leaders to have in mind, especially with this sort of, not now, let's say in 10, 15 years' time, with a new generation coming into the workforce? We still have hybrid working in place, remote working in place. With AI now here, how do you think that's all going to play out? And I guess people, human touch. What do leaders need to be thinking about?
It's really difficult to make predictions about this kind of
Because it's
stuff
changing
every
so
day.
fast.
All of my training packs have a disclaimer that says, this is true as of 1st of May, 2026. Things change quickly. I think it's difficult to predict how things are going to change. Some people are predicting it's a bubble, it's going to end soon, we'll have tools that help us write nice emails. Some people are predicting the robots are taking over the world and all entry-level jobs will disappear. Then that obviously creates a huge chasm of, if all entry-level jobs disappear, how does anyone learn the skills they need to get to those more?
Yeah.
And then there's also people saying the AI will generate new types of jobs, which does, with any kind of technological revolution, that does tend to happen. You know, there are so many occupations in history that no longer exist.
Yeah.
Like, because of technology. So I think leaders need to think about what are the values and principles of their organizations. How can they hold on to those and their humanity and find the balance between the bottom line and a productive, healthy, happy workforce?
And moving on from that, for women leaders specifically, do you see AI leveling the playing field or creating new gaps?
It's possible that it could do both, because at the moment, AI tools are a brilliant equalizer for people who didn't necessarily study technical or sciences or maths. So I, as a person who did theatre studies, I can build apps, I can build websites. I've built my own website. I've built some very niche apps that help streamline parts of my life. That would never be possible without the advent of AI. So if you think about the opportunities that are there for people who aren't necessarily trained in that way to still build businesses, to do things that you could never do before. I couldn't afford to pay someone to build a website or to build all these funny little apps that I've built for myself. That's possible now. So that could be really empowering for people, particularly as we know there's disparity in terms of gender between who is stereotypically more drawn to the science and maths side of things as opposed to the humanities. So there could be a real opportunity there. But also, at the same time, again, to generalize, stereotypically, it is women who are in a lot of those jobs that may be automated away. And if you look at the loudest voices in AI, and I'm talking about the frontier kind of companies. So you're Sam Altman, you're Dario Amodei, you're Demis Hassabis. And if you watch any of their YouTube videos, I spend a lot of my time watching their YouTube videos. There's the occasional woman that appears probably chosen, but it's teeming. That industry is just very much dominated by men, and they're brilliant, smart, incredible men, but it's definitely not reflecting like a balanced workforce. I think also there's a risk if women are not adopting the use of AI, which until quite recently it was very unbalanced. In the past few months, it's being reported that the balance is more equal. OpenAI was reporting that, I think maybe last year, only 30-something% of its users, they were guessing, identified as female, and now it's getting closer to parity. So usage is growing. It's just how do we see more leadership that is more representative?
So what advice, Brooke, would you give to women who are earlier in their leadership journey and who are still building their confidence?
I would say I wish that I had thought earlier about really trying to understand what gives me energy, what types of work do I get energized, do I get joy, and what types of work really are draining for me or really frustrating. Especially when you're earlier on in your career, likely you don't have as much control over what type of work that you do or how you spend your time. But if you can be thinking about and really noticing and listening to yourself, what really energizes me? Is it asking big picture questions? Is it being given a list of ideas and helping people decide what the best ideas? Is it doing the work and executing and collaborating with people? What gives you energy and what drains you? And then try to structure your time. Everyone has to do some work that's frustrating and draining, but how can you structure your time so that a good chunk, if not the majority of your time, is spent doing the types of work that give you joy and energy? The other thing, when you catch yourself judging yourself really, really harshly, could you spin that around? And if that was your friend talking to you about themselves, what would you say? So trying to kind of be kinder. The thing you're judging yourself for is likely to be a strength that maybe is just overplayed. And if the path of climbing a career ladder and becoming a manager and then becoming a director and spending lots of time in thinking about things and strategy, if that gives you energy, do that. If that doesn't give you energy, find your own path that does.
And lastly, if you could go back and speak to yourself at the start of your career, what would you say in one sentence?
The thing that you keep trying to fix about yourself might actually be the thing that makes you really good at building relationships, empathizing with people, and finding a balance for that is the best way to look after yourself and to ensure that you treat yourself like your best friend would want you to be treated.
Oh, what a nice way to end that.
Oh, thank you.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you on today. I feel like we could definitely have explored this in a lot more detail. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Fatima.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Fatima. I appreciate the opportunity.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much to our guests for today's conversation, and thank you for listening to Claiming Space. We hope it's given you something to think about or something to take away with you. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. You can also connect with us and continue the conversation on our social channels. Just search for us and follow along. Until next time, keep claiming your space.